Now we go to the discussion post. So in writing L, you've found or dealt or created a primary source. So the discussion post this week wants you to find two secondary sources. Okay, so a secondary source is a source that uses primary source information. So if Martin Luther King's speech was a primary source, if I write an essay about his speech and then I publish my essay, the essay is a secondary source, right? So any document or article or report, right, that uses primary source material is a secondary source. You may have this already, I don't know, but if you do, you you can use it, but you need two of them. So I'm asking you to find or present whatever two secondary sources, and of course the focus of these sources is that they're going to help you explain and describe how your narrative changed or is changing. That's the focus of these. The way to know that it's a good secondary source is that you look at it and you can identify the primary information that's in there, right? So if I'm reading an essay and it's talking all about Martin Luther King's speech, I know that it's a good secondary source because I can identify what the primary material is. If somebody's using like data, so someone may have collected data, the data all by itself is a primary source, but once somebody starts to use the data and analyze it, then it becomes a secondary source. Okay, so you need to find two secondary sources for the discussion post. Here's what you're going to do. You put the APA reference for each source, right? That's the official APA reference, meaning, right, author, title, that business. You give a brief summary of each of the sources. This one talks mostly about this, and this one talks mostly about that, and help. Then you need to talk about how it's going to help you talk about the changing narrative. Right, so this one focuses on this idea that's about my narrative changing, and here's what the other one does. And then you're doing the same thing. You're going to connect to, does your source talk mainly about the plot of the new narrative, the character of the new narrative, the setting of the new narrative, and so on. So that's the secondary source, right? I gave some examples of different secondary sources. But I would say, there are more remote sources, right? I mean, I would say, a Time magazine article that uses a bunch of different information, it's not a great secondary source, right? It's sort of even more remote. Like I said, a solid secondary source, you can identify pretty clearly what the primary material is. All right, so you got writing L. You're going to figure out which primary source you're going to deal with. You're either going to find one or create one. Discussion post, you're going to find or use two secondary sources and give information about that. And obviously, or not, but this both the primary source and these two secondary sources you'll use in this essay, the final essay that we're doing. So you want ones that will be useful to you.